Hi, I'm Steve Smith, aka Ardalis, and today I'm going to show you how to install Visual Studio Community 2019 with all the tools you need to get started building web applications with ASP.NET Core. Let's get started. To begin, I'll pop over to visualstudio.com, your one-stop shop for all things related to Visual Studio. There are several tools available, but today we're going to install Visual Studio 2019. There are several editions of Visual Studio. In this video, we're going to use the free Visual Studio Community 2019 edition. When I choose the edition, I'm taken to the download page for the installer. Then I just click Run. This launches the Visual Studio installer, which will guide me through the installation process. It only takes a moment for the installer to get set up. Then, the installer shows the different workloads that I can install, grouped into different categories. Workloads make it easy for me to make sure I have everything I need installed to build a particular kind of app. You can see there are workloads for Windows, Web and Cloud, Mobile and Gaming, and other toolsets. I'm going to check ASP.NET and Web Development, and then also .NET Core cross-platform development. On the right, I can see the details of what's included with each of these workloads. I can also take more direct control over what's installed by going to the Individual Components tab, but usually all you need is what's included in the appropriate workload. Of course, if later on I decide I want to install additional workloads or components, it's easy to relaunch the Visual Studio installer later. Once I click Install, the installer is going to download and install everything I need to get started with Visual Studio Community 2019. Let's give this a few minutes to complete. Now that Visual Studio Community 2019 has finished installing, it launches automatically. If this is the first time you've installed Visual Studio, you'll see that you have the option of signing in. Signing in has some nice features, like synchronizing your settings between installations, but you can always do this later. The next thing you'll do as you're getting things set up is to choose your color theme and development settings. Since we're going to be building ASP.NET Core applications, I'm going to choose the Web Development settings, and I'll keep the default blue theme, although many people like the dark option that's available as well. You can change these settings later from within Visual Studio. Now let's look at the different options for getting started building our first ASP.NET Core app with Visual Studio Community 2019. We can view our starting template options by clicking Create New Project. I'll select ASP.NET Core Web Application and then click Next. Go ahead and keep the default project name and location values and click Create. Next, I can choose the kind of ASP.NET Core app I want to build. The options range from an empty application that lets me start completely from scratch to a single-page application using a framework like Angular, React, or React with Redux. Which one to choose depends on what I want to build. If it's mainly going to be used as a web API endpoint, then the API template is a good place to start. For most typical web applications that will serve content, the web application template works well and uses Razor pages by default. I might also choose the web application model view controller template if I prefer controllers and views to pages. There's also an option to add a Razor class library, which can be used to share Razor content between my projects. Looking at the standard web application template, notice that I can add support for Docker containers to my project just by clicking a checkbox. I can also add authentication to the application. Clicking the Change Authentication button shows me options for individual user accounts, which can store these accounts in a local database or in the cloud. I can also go with work or school accounts, which use Active Directory, Azure Active Directory, or Office 365. Finally, I can go with Windows Authentication, which is appropriate for intranet applications that won't be used by internet clients. I'm going to go ahead and stick with no authentication for now. Now I'm ready to click OK to create my new project. In the next video, you'll see how to get started creating your first ASP.NET Core project.